Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today I'm going to give you a little introduction to and update on what is perhaps the easiest permanent residency in the EU. Now, I've talked previously about how you have the Maltese program, which is probably the easiest Schengen permanent residency you can get. This one is actually easier than that. The only thing is it's not a Schengen one. However, the tax treatment is potentially, or arguably the best in Europe. I know we contrast and we talk a lot about Portugal on this channel and the Portuguese golden visa and the NHR program and things like this. We're going to go through this place, which is Cyprus. They just had some recent updates, which makes it, in a sense, maybe much more attractive than it was before. And so I'm going to cover it for you guys. Before we dive into that, if you haven't already, please smash the subscribe button, nail the notification bell, make sure you don't miss out on any of our future videos. I have done a video on Cyprus previously. You can go back and check out talking about their non-dom tax system, which is really great. If you're interested at all in help with these things, getting residencies, figuring out where to go, citizenships, setting up companies internationally, international tax planning, basically paying the lowest legal amount of tax possible, protecting your assets, etc., including the execution, helping with forming companies, opening bank accounts, etc., etc., etc. Please reach out to us. You can book a call with me at calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer. There's a link in the description below. Or you can check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com. Okay, let's dive into it. Now, so this is a weird permanent residency program because basically the way that it works is you do an investment, all right? Now, it used to be that you would do this by buying a property, 300,000 euros or greater, okay? Now they've just expanded it, so it includes, you can buy, that was residential property, you can buy residential property, you can buy commercial property, you can invest in a company, or you can invest in a fund. All three, 300,000 or greater, can qualify you for this permanent residency, or permanent. I'll fill in what that means in a second, and kind of explain to you a little bit about how it also plays out, because it's really attractive in a bunch of different regards. So first of all, just a quick background on Cyprus. I've done a variety of videos on there in the past. Cyprus is an EU country, however, it's not a Schengen country. It is not so small as Malta, but it is still an island. It's kind of more remote, so a little bit further in terms of flights, but maybe better connected, hard to say. For those of you who haven't been there, it's great in the summer, nice beaches. It has a really long season, like if you were there in October into November, the weather can still be amazing. So pretty good season. There's not a ton of people there. There's not a ton going on. So for people who like big cities, Cyprus is not for you. But for people who like other stuff, could be. They used to have a citizenship by investment program. They got rid of the citizenship by investment program in November. Maybe they'll do something with that in the future. We'll talk about that in future videos. But today we're going to talk about something called Regulation 6.2. Regulation 6.2 is their fast track program, and so let's go through the highlights. So first of all, you can get this in 2 months, okay? So this is a very quick process, which we like. If we were to contrast it to, for example, the Portuguese golden visa, I'm seeing right now is taking kind of 6 to 12 months to go through that process, which is fairly long, right? This one, much quicker. You don't actually have to have completed the purchase, say, of property in order to get the residency. Basically, you just have to have signed the contract and deposited 200,000 of 300,000 into the escrow process, and it could take a few months before everything completes. And this is partially because people are often buying off-plan from developments. So contrasting to Portugal, in this case, if you buy property, you're only buying new property, okay? So this is not, you can't buy any property, you have to buy new property. However, let's take a look at these other options. So you can invest in an existing Cyprus company into the share capital, okay? Now it has to be a business that employs 5 people or more. It's a pre-existing company, but imagine you were to go and invest in a hotel, invest in a retail store, you could have a business that's actually making profit, and you could invest in it and be getting a return and potentially have pretty good upside, right? Depending on whether you know your business or not. Number 2, these funds. So the funds are actually paying returns. Now, there's a whole different bunch of them, but that's potentially an interesting thing, okay? And then, of course, you can buy, like I said, commercial real estate as well as residential real estate, so that could also be okay. There's some possibility to get some yield there. So I would say that there's an ability to get some return, which certainly can be better than a lot of the other programs, a lot of the other places. And then it's also simpler if you're, say, investing in a fund. Now, I'm a little leery when I hear about these funds. I just have so many experiences seeing alternative investment funds where you're like, okay, how safe is the money? How well managed is it? Things like this. So a little leery, but if you can get the right one, then certainly it could be very worthwhile. And like I said, if you could buy into a business that you know the business, things like this, you actually could have some control in that case. And so that can mitigate a lot of your risk as well and potentially give you a decent upside. Certainly when you're talking about the size of business that you would invest $300,000 into, I mean, your price earnings ratio could be pretty good, right? So that's something to be aware of. Okay, so what else do we have to consider here? A few things that are really interesting is that with this program, you can bring not only your family, so not only you, your spouse, your kids, but also your parents and parents-in-law. So you can actually have 3 generations of people who can come based on this residency, which is pretty excellent. There's not a lot of programs in the world that give you that kind of exposure. Now they say it's permanent. It's permanent so long as you keep the property, okay? So if you're in a situation where you say, all right, a property or the investment, right? So if you were to sell the property, then you no longer qualify. If you were to sell the investment, you no longer qualify, et cetera. So you can change, you can sell one property and buy another one, but you need to keep that investment up if you want to maintain this residency status. Now, it does lead to citizenship. So basically it's 7 years. However, you need to spend, that's actual, basically time in the country. So you have to spend 5 times 5 years times 365 days a year in order to qualify. So if you're actually living there, if you're working there, I've got clients who go and live there and that's their life, etc. It's a good passport if you can get it. So if you're willing to spend, let's say that if you're doing normal vacations or something, it's probably going to take you, let's say it's 7 years, right? So a 7-year process to get citizenship there. That's not, too bad for a pretty good passport. Quality of life is pretty good there, right? It's safe, things work fairly well. It's mostly English speaking. So, pretty reasonable in that regard. However, if you're thinking that it's someplace that you're going to spend, 2 months a year and get their citizenship, you're not. In fact, in the last year, you need to spend the entire 365 days there before you apply. So something to be aware of. That being said, to maintain the residency, you only need to visit every 2 years. So you can maintain permanent residency status based on your investment and visit every 2 years, and that can be pretty useful. It can also be helpful if you're somebody, say you're from India or you're from Nigeria or someplace that has a bad passport that doesn't give you visa-free access into the Schengen zone. It can really help if you have this visa in order to be able to apply and get a Schengen visa as well. So although you don't get a Schengen visa here, it can still be helpful in getting one. So that's something that's worth considering. On top of that, the tax benefits are strong. Okay, so to give you some idea, I mentioned this previously, if you're working for a foreign employer, 90 days outside of the year and you're on what's called the non-dom program, which lasts for 17 years, you can have your salary exempted from tax, which is amazing. Under the non-dom program, your dividends are exempted from tax. Generally speaking, capital gains are exempted from tax. So if you say buy and sell shares, you're an investor, that's generally exempted from tax. So it is perhaps the easiest place in the EU to have zero tax or close to zero tax. Again, trade-offs depending on where you're coming from, what other access you're looking for, but very, very favorable in that regard. So quite useful. There's some basic income requirements, but really fairly minor for the types of people who I think would typically be going there. So that's something to consider. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting program. It is, although Cyprus is not really one of the places that I would most want to be a resident personally. I'm more of a cities person, and so that doesn't really fit with the lifestyle that I'm looking for. It is something, I kind of take this data point and I pay attention to where clients and friends and people go to live and stay. Okay, so a lot of places people move. For example, Panama. Panama on paper sounds really good, but all the people that I know who move to Panama end up moving away from Panama. Whereas by contrast, people who move to Cyprus seem to stay in Cyprus. So this to me is a good data point about kind of aggregating a lot of information into the quality of life. So good taxes, good weather, easy program to qualify for, and easy to maintain, easy to bring lots of people. I guess the last thing that I would tell you about this is, so you can bring dependents under the age of 18, meaning up to but not including 18, or 18 to 25 if they're full-time in school. So that's another piece that, if you have a family that's maybe a little bit more extended, you want to move with them. I run into a lot of cases where clients, they're saying, okay, great, I've got a 21-year-old son, I've got a 23-year-old daughter, I want to be able to bring them with us. And so you can qualify them for this program, which is pretty good. So anyway, hope that helps. If you have questions about it, put it in the comments below. If you would like help with this or any of the other programs in the EU, around the world, etc., either citizenships, residencies, if you'd like corporate structuring, how to optimize your tax, protect your assets, etc., help with banking, etc., 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 please reach out to us. You can book a call with me at calendly.com/Michael Rosmer. Subscribe to the channel, like it if you like the video, share it with your friends, and I'm going to see you guys on the next video.